Emulate the taste of like non-chicken nuggets. So these nuggets are made from chicken, but they're made to emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Dope.
Oh, that's much better.
Edit all the blather out of your videos because my time is very precious.
Oh, that's fire.
Make it less teal and more
Cerulean? Sure.
Replace your background with something more fun? The cold void of outer space.
Let's boost that sound quality. Emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Dope.
It needs more style. It needs more clips, more gifs, more. Well, I might have made it too gnarly.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Aaron. How are we going? How's it going? How are we?
Good, Marcello. How are you, man?
I'm wonderful on this Wednesday afternoon or morning, whatever time it is.
Yeah. Based on people in London and Canada and New York City, probably different time zone than we're on, but that's okay. That just makes it more interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. We are talking scenes and layouts. In other words, making your video look good and the ways you made it look good, easy to repeat. If that's what you are here for, you're in the right place. Shout out to the Australians in the chat because I'm pretty sure you should be sleeping right now, but instead you're getting better at editing videos, which we respect. That's why we're here too. Let's rock and roll with the intro. Oh, just going to switch that to 1 and then we should be good. There we go. You think I know how to do this by now?
I think we get all of our technical difficulties out the way at the very, very beginning. I think is now our standard.
Yeah. So as you can tell by our nameplates, because you can read, I'm Aaron. This is Marcello. We work together at Descript, and we help you make awesome looking videos to do whatever it is you're creating your content around. While you are here with us today, we have the chat. We can see from all the different places. YouTube tends to be the most popular, but we're live on LinkedIn. We're on X. We're trying to get on TikTok. So if you're on TikTok, let us know that it's working. But we also have Trevor from support in the chat who's going to answer a lot of the back and forth. His fingers are warmed up. That dude's word per minute count is like 150 plus. We'll answer those. We also look at them afterwards. So if there's something we missed, we can go back and reply to a comment or get your feedback on the session. It's also recorded, so it's going to live live on all of those platforms. If you have to dip out to go heat up your lunch or go to sleep because you're in Australia and why are you still awake right now? Don't worry, it will be saved and archived for you in the future. And then if you want a more in-depth guide to some of these topics, or just a web page to go to after the fact, help.descript.com has articles on every feature and all the things that we're doing. And they don't talk as fast as Marcello and I. So if that's more your jam, you can always go there afterwards.
I'll show a way for us to get into the help center from the application as well. But I promise I will talk a little slower today.
No, you do you, man. If it's 8 cups of coffee kind of morning, then we're just going to let it rip.
We're only on 6, so we should be fine. But anyway.
Light work. Agenda for today. Basically, we're going to teach you what scenes and layouts are, and then we're going to do them with you. We even have a project that you can take. So it's not just look at us on the screen. You can see the actual project and get in the app and the interface and all of that. You just need a free account to log in if you don't already have one, and take your Q&A. The best part of doing it live is Marcello can help answer your questions. So with that in mind, if you stay with us and pay attention and apply, what are you going to get out of this? We're going to have better organized videos. We're going to make them look good. And then probably the most important thing, at least for me, is it's a repeatable process. So you don't have to design things every time you want a video. You have it set up in a way that with a click, it's going to snap to that. Kind of like a template. We call them layouts. So let's start with scenes. What the heck is a scene? We have a lot of analogies, half of them related to cakes. Think of it like a slide in a presentation. How do you know when to make a new slide versus just stuff more things on there? Well, one reason is because you want to change the visual. So hopefully all of your slides don't repeat the same layout and you just put 3 new bullet points, because then it could have just been an email or a document. The same thing is true with your video. Sometimes you want the talking head part to slide over and be half screen, or sometimes you want a title card to flash who the guest is on your show, or you want to screen share and not have the talking head over it. When you're changing those visual layouts, those are just scenes. If you have the transcript view like we do in the screenshot, you get a little thumbnail preview each time a scene is put into your project. So we're going to learn what those are, why would you use them, and how do they fit into the cake that you are baking. The next one to know is a layout pack. Basically, it's a consistent way to organize the visuals within your scene and your project. So you could have Marcello and I top and bottom with these 2 little boxes and then a screen share over here. Or you could get rid of the screen share, and now we go side by side and it has Aaron, community, but I want that purple. I want this purple and I want a cool font. Layout allows you to create those, but more importantly, repeat them, save them, and even share them with people on your team. And you're going to see a bunch of examples of those when Marcello gets in the project. With that being said, if you're still here, it's late in London or Australia, so let's get to the live demo.
Yeah, quick shout out to anyone that's watching this outside of standard work hours and whatever time zone you're in. Thank you for watching for today's session.
Yeah, it's definitely later in India and Australia. I've seen both of those in the chat. Okay, so ready?
All right, we're live. So before we get started, Aaron, how many scenes can we see on here? We just learned that scenes are that next slide, right, in our deck. Looking at our project here, how many scenes do we have?
So if you count the little thumbnails, I see 7 as you click through those, Marcello, but I was not prepared for a math exam, so
Well, we'll skip the exam, but in the chat, hopefully everyone got that one. I'm going to change the view real quick so we can see the full screen of what we are editing, and then we'll look at building that up together. Just to show really quick, on the top left of the screen, we can click view and change the view to full screen. Here's what we'll be building towards today.
This is Jacques from Poseidon Logistics with an update that will be a real treasure for your shipping operations. We've just released a groundbreaking improvement to our Pirate Tracker feature. It's going to be a real game changer for anyone moving cargo across open waters. Not only will you get real-time location data of known pirate ships, but we've also included a full strategic plan to keep your cargo safe from plunder.
Awesome video there. We just got to see, like Aaron mentioned, 7 scenes. Those scenes consisting of speakers, text, media, AI generated B-roll. We got it all. But that is, again, what we're going to be building towards today. Like Aaron mentioned, on the top left of the screen, there should be a QR code that you can scan to look at the project that we're working on today. And I believe we're going to share that in the chat as well on some of our streaming pieces.
Yep, which allows you, kind of like a Google Doc, to see what we're doing on your end. So if you want to follow along or have that on a different tab or a different device, the QR code up in the corner, or our Descript support in the chat also has the URL that you should be able to open that up and view the exact project that we're working in.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. Now we saw what the final project looks like. Everyone should have the ability to take a peek of the project on your own as well. Now let's look at editing this. I'm going to go to another composition where this video is unedited fully. And we see here the unedited version of Jacques from Poseidon Logistics.
This is Jacques from Poseidon Logistics with an update that will be a real treasure for your shipping operations.
Cool. So that's our raw video. Let's take this and build our way back up to that video we just looked at a moment ago. Now, the first thing we asked was how many scenes were there, right? So let's first look at breaking out this video into scenes. Now, we learned what scenes are. Again, that's next slide in our presentation, or a drastic change of visuals on screen. But let's learn how to add scenes or create scenes inside of Descript. So what I want to do is I want to add a scene break right here after he mentions his name, right? Jacques with Poseidon Logistics. Right after that, I want a new scene to be introduced. To add a new scene to Descript, I'm going to click the / on my keyboard. Same button that I'd add a question mark, just without holding that shift button. But here I'm clicking the / on my key. And the moment I do that, exactly where my cursor is in my script, I'll get a new thumbnail. This thumbnail being the visual indicator for when a new scene appears inside of Descript. Now, you might have heard me say this before if you've been to a prior webinar, but with Descript, all roads lead to Rome. Some are the fast path and some are the scenic route. I'm showing one way to add scenes to Descript, but there's many different ways that you can add scenes to your video project. On the right-hand side of the screen, we have AI tools, and there's ways to do so as well. Or if you have been with Descript for a minute, you might recognize our AI editing assistant, Underlord, on the bottom right of the screen. Like I mentioned, I can manually click the / key on my keyboard or use any of our AI tools to create scenes. But since I know where I want our scenes to go, I'm just going to manually include them here in our script area, again, by clicking the / on my keyboard. We made this project so that pretty much every line break introduces a new scene or is ready for a new visual change. So I'll go ahead and break these out each piece by piece. Again, the / on my keyboard to make that new scene. Now you might notice as well, while I am adding these scenes, there is a little button that appears right above that scene. That button is prompting me to select a layout. Now, earlier, we talked about layouts as well. We talked about scenes being when the visuals change, and the layouts being what it changes to. Layouts, again, being like a visual template that lays out elements on screen for us, whether it's a screen recording, a camera recording, B-roll, or anything like that. So what I'm going to do to change a layout or add a layout to the scene right now is I'm going to click on the thumbnail, and above where I've clicked, again, I'll see the option to change my layout. Now, like I just said a second ago, there's a couple different ways to achieve the same thing. You might also notice on the bottom of the scene editor here, there's also a layout button. So again, multiple ways to enter the layout selection screen. We'll look at all of them today, but just to start with, we'll look at the path of least resistance, the way in through the selection of a thumbnail. So when I click on this thumbnail, right above that thumbnail, I have the button layout. When I click on layout, now here I'll see the library inside of this layout pack. Again, to clarify the terminology that Aaron was using earlier, we have layout pack, like he mentioned, and the layout pack is the groups of layouts that all fit the same kind of style. Here, by default, we're using the Descript default layout pack. This default layout pack has some pretty basic on-screen elements, some camera placeholders, some like just kind of default text and default brand colors. But if I wanted to, I can choose a different layout pack by clicking the change layout pack here at the bottom. First, we're going to show what it looks like with slightly different visuals. So I'll click change layout pack. And then on the right-hand side here, the third way to enter into layouts, we have all of our options for layout packs. Now, again, by default, everyone is going to be on this Descript default layout pack. Most projects land in that space. You have the ability to utilize any of the Descript default layouts. We have not only just one pack, but I think like 30 different packs. You can also create your own layouts and layout packs that can be shared with yourself or other members of your team. Those can be shared here in the drive or under private. But for today, we'll just look at the gallery layouts that we have to start with, and then we'll look at saving some for our own later on. What I'm first going to do is I'm going to scroll down to one of my favorite layout packs. If you have been to any of these sessions before, you have probably heard me talk about the Helsinki Blueberry Dark layout pack. I genuinely, as Marcello, the creative, think that this is really cool. I also, just a quick side comment, Berlin Carrot Dark. These are the two coolest layout packs for me as a dude. So I'm just going to use those. But here, to see the layouts inside of this pack, we'll click See Layouts. And then here, I'm brought back to the same kind of gallery screen that I saw beforehand. So here I can scroll through all of the layouts and choose which one suits my needs best. Aaron, out of the Helsinki Blueberry or the Berlin Carrot, which one is your favorite?
Well, first I had to cross both of those off of my Marcello bingo card, because as we're playing along here, we might have our first bingo. That's hard. You know, I do like the Helsinki Blueberry Dark. The other question the audience has to have is, who named these? Like, I don't know the answer. I think the same thing every time we go through those. But if you're in the project, the cool thing about the gallery is think of it as the shared with everybody ones. So you have the same exact layouts that Marcelo's looking at in your project right now, even though you may not have known what a layout was when you opened it.
Exactly. And I think one great thing with Descript layouts and with most things in Descript is that when you make a selection to any of these things, it's not set in stone, right? By having this like on the right-hand side here, just looking at a couple of these, here's large intro, medium intro, default camera. Let's say I click on large intro and I don't like large intro. My project isn't stuck with the large intro pack. I can even select a different one like medium intro, or even resize elements manually on screen if I want to. I think the great thing with Descript layouts is that, like, one, I don't know who named them. I think that was one of our contractors. Two, they are not something that like is locked down and cannot be edited, right? With Descript, we make this open for people to edit, collaborate, and adjust things to their heart's content. I think we give really good starting off points because, again, stylistically, like I like these layout packs as a person, but like, they might not fit my exact brand style or might not have the exact font that my company uses, right? So we can always reset or change some of the elements of a layout and then save that for a future use. But enough talking. Let me actually apply one of these things. Let's see what we have here. At the very top, just to show at the very top of the screen, there's a couple different things that you can do to like search layouts. I'm specifically looking for a chapter layout, so I can use the search key here to just search chapter. And here I have chapter layout. I'm going to select chapter title. This chapter title is going to provide text on the left-hand side and then move my speaker to the right-hand side. I'll click that here, and then we'll see that update. Cool. Now let's hit play and see what Jacques looks like now.
This is Jacques from Poseidon Logistics
my
with
bad.
an update that will be a real treasure for your shipping operation.
Cool. So we just changed that first layout to have that introduction. Now we can go through the remainder of our layouts and do the same, or the remainder of our scenes and do the same. Let's go here to our next layout. And then now, instead of a chapter, I want some media. So we can look up media here. Now here, I have a bunch of different options for media placeholders, right? Now, what I want is to have the speaker on screen and some additional piece of media, whether that's B-roll, a still image, AI-generated content, whatever it may be. I know that Descript's default layouts have at least one B-roll or media type. We're going to be selecting a layout that has that media here. So I'm going to select, let's do B-roll overlay, which puts the media on the left-hand side and then the speaker on the right in a nice framing. I'll click that. And then right away, I have my placeholder for my media and for my speaker automatically framed. Now, one thing I want to get into really quickly about placeholders is that when you use a layout inside of Descript, we have multiple types of placeholders. We have 3 types of placeholders total: camera, screen, and media. Camera being me, the camera pointed at myself. Screen being a screen recording or screen sharing that you're doing, and media being either a still image, pre-recorded GIF, anything like that. But those three types of placeholders exist inside of Descript, and you can see on the right-hand side here, media, screen, and camera. What I want to do is I want to add media into this placeholder, because in our original video, we saw like some pirate B-roll. So let's re-add that here. With any of the placeholders that I select from a layout, if I click on the placeholder in the scene editor, above the placeholder, I'll see an option to add media. If I click add media, I get a couple different options to add media, either from my computer, like if I haven't uploaded a file yet, from stock media, I could record or generate something right here, or I can import something from other projects or my current project file list. I know that this file is already uploaded to my project, so I'm going to select project files, but here's a great chance for people to try out image generation or recording. If you're talking about a product demonstration, you can record your screen recording right into here. But for now, I'll click project files, and then here on the right-hand side, I'll look at my AI assets. And I believe, was it this one? Yeah, here we go. So I can see a preview of my video here, and at the bottom of my video preview, I see a button that says replace. By clicking replace, I have now added this B-roll to that placeholder, right? I've swapped out the placeholder with the place thing that I wanted in the place of the placeholder. What do you call the thing that you put in the place of the placeholder? The placeholder holds the place for the thing? I don't know. Anyway, but here, now we have used a layout that has the speaker framed on the right-hand side and then our B-roll or our placeholder media on the left. Let's play this back from the start to see what this looks like.
This is Jacques from Poseidon Logistics with an update that will be a real treasure for your shipping operations.
Now, one thing I noticed at the beginning, this just says introduction. Like I've been mentioning, Descript is not, locked down, so I can change this text from introduction to ahoy from Poseidon Logistics, like we saw in that first tab. What I can do is I can select the text inside this layout, just like the placeholder element. We can swap something out. Here, I'm just going to paste in some text that I have ready to go from another session. Additionally, I want to change the fill of this little blue to like the purple that's behind my friend here. So I can select the color dropper tool, click this purple, and boom, now I have something a lot more stylized for my needs, right? I have my text instead of some default text. I have the color of the backdrop from my speaker to kind of really like tie all that visually in. And then now I also have spacing for B-roll. Really cool, I think. But Aaron, anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question is, how did you get the media in your AI assets?
Yes.
Folder?
Okay. Great question. So so we won't go super in depth on this today, but there's a couple different ways, like I've said, a couple different ways to generate AI assets. Option one is here. If I go back to this like replace piece here, I have immediately the ability to generate an image. If I click on generate image, this will take me to an image generation modal. Additionally, on the right-hand side of Descript, under the AI tools section, if you scroll down to the look good section, under look good is generate an image and generate a video. If I click generate video, here I have the option to generate a video based on a prompt. I can upload supporting context. So if I have an image of a pirate already that I would like this image to be based upon, I can upload that here. I can select a style, right? So here I believe we picked either like the marker or the digital illustrations style, but here you can select styles for your for like the output. And then here you can also select what model you are using for image generation or video generation. So Descript, we don't make an image and video generation model, but that gives us the power to be flexible and incorporate any video and image generation model that you might see out in the world, right? There's like 50,000 new image models made every like 2 months, right? And instead of trying each one, especially with the names of some of these, I'm not going to, some of the naming conventions for these models are for me, Marcello, are insane, right? So I might not Google all of these and try each of these. I'm going to let Descript, with our staff of extremely solid video and audio editors, select what models are most powerful and fit the needs of a Descript user the most, instead of me being like, let me find Klingon 2 or whatever the current one is. I think Klingon is a language from Star Trek and not a generation model. My bad for my Trek fans. Boom.
I think the same thing. So I guess the big thing is you made it in Descript and then it's saved in this project. Even if you didn't drop it onto your canvas,
Correct.
It's going to be in your project files, pre-organized by all the AI images and videos are in one folder for you.
Correct. If you're going to play Marcello Bingo, I will quickly just say digital cleanliness. On the top right of the screen, if you click on project here, you can see a list of everything that's inside of your project, including compositions and files. Whenever I generate any content with AI, or even if I like preview any content in the stock media library, they can be saved here as AI assets, music, stock media, and then the recording being the original recording of Jacques here. But again, you can view all of that from the project files folder. And I don't have to click and drag in these files. It's not automatically adding this to my project. I think with video and image generation, right? Sometimes you need multiple takes. You need multiple attempts of generation before you get the one you want. For that reason, we don't automatically just add everything to your project. We give you, there's like a little plus button here on the top right of whatever you generate to add that to your project.
Yep. And shout out Mike, who has a great suggestion about using the AI video tool, which he uses to loop slide backgrounds. That's a great use of the tool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think like one, just to call that out specifically, right here, if I could upload a file from my computer, we can pick, like we can have a screenshot or a still of the slide, right, that we have, upload that, and then select a model with a longer duration, like 8 to 10 seconds. I think Sora has the longest. Yeah, 12 here. And then have like a longer image, right? And then like have that looping forever. And then that be the background instead of a stagnant, still framed slide. Cool. All right. Now let's go about customizing a layout a little bit further. I just gave us like a little sneak peek of changing the color here, but let's do something a little bit more out there. We'll pick a layout that has some more text and speaker on screen. Here, I'll select the medium intro. So here I have, again, my speaker framed on the right-hand side, dynamic or placeholder text that is automatically filled based on my script, and then some supporting text below hand. Now, the three things I want to do in here is I want to change the font, change the color of this blue to that purple again, and then maybe change that bottom text in some way, shape, or form as well. And then I want to save that for future use, right? So what I want to do is I'm going to customize this layout in whatever way, shape I feel fit. I'm going to first, again, change the color of this font or this text. So I'm going to click this color wheel here and then select color wheel. And then I have our little dropper tool in here. So this allows me to select any color that's on screen. I'm just going to pull this purple. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this color down here. I'm just copying that hit. But I have like previously used colors in this bar here. I can enter a hex value or select from a previously like color dropped one, right? So here I'm changing the purple of both that bottom banner and this text. Now I'm also going to change the font. So here I'm going to select this. And even though I love space mono, I don't know what that font is. Let's do bread. So we're applying that new font. Here's my more pixely vibe. And then we'll change the font of this one as well. Perfect. All right. So now we've altered the text and the color for this layout. Now, like I mentioned, right, we have Descript's default layouts, but we have the ability to customize this and save this for future use. So how would I go about saving this for future use? On the left-hand side of the screen, where the thumbnail for this scene is, I can right-click that scene, and I will get an option to either change the layout, copy and paste the layout, reset the layout in full, or most importantly, save scene as new layout. By me clicking save scene as new layout, I am saving what I've just altered as a new scene or as a new layout for me to use on future content. So I'll click save scene as new layout. And on the right-hand side, it's going to give me the option to name the layout. So I'll do purple text like 8-bit, whatever I want to name this. Below here, I also see a type marker. So with all of the layouts that we've selected so far, even here at the bottom, you'll see the layout that I have is like an intro layout, right? Each layout has a tag that can be applied to it. When I click on type, here's all of the types or tags that I can apply to my layout. This one has some text on screen. So I'm going to put text as my type. Here I can also choose which layers are or are not saved. So if for whatever reason, like I want to keep this top text, but I don't want to keep this bottom text, I can keep the title as leave it out, keep it, or mark something as a placeholder. That way, when I have like text in my, or when I apply this layout to new text, it'll dynamically change what's in here instead of literally saying transforming your shipping operations. I think this piece is important for people that are using placeholders, is when you are saving these elements, right? If I click keep content, every time I apply this layout, it's going to say groundbreaking improvement to pirate tracker. But if I select placeholder for both the title and the text, now this text will autofill with whatever is in my script contextually. But cool, I'll set those as layouts. And then here I can select my layout pack. So again, here's where I can pick one or larger pack that I have. I'll just create a new layout pack for now, and I'll name this webinar demo. And finally here, when I'm saving my layout, I have the ability to save a layout as private, so just me, Drive, so other members of my team like Aaron here, or share publicly, like I could click share publicly, give anyone in the crowd the link, and you could all use this layout. I'll click share with Drive for now, because I want to make sure my manager likes this before I share it publicly, and then I'll click continue. Then here at the bottom, I have create, add, pack, and save, and here I am now adding this to a layout pack that I can use further on.
Yep.
Cool.
TCMU on YouTube has a great question, Marcelo.
Hit it.
When saving a new scene layout, should we select the original video and script to be the placeholder or keep the content? What's your recommendation?
Great question. And let's just show this here. So here in the script, right? If I save this as a layout right now, keep content, this is going to keep the content of what's in the script. So above here, I show like in a optimal scenario, I would have a placeholder for what's in the script. That way, when you apply the layout, it's not replaced with the sentence of Jacques here saying it's going to be a real game changer. Instead, it's going to be what you say, right? So your script, like Marcello best practice, like make your script track placeholder.
Yeah. And a time you would use the content is, say it's an intro to a podcast, and you always have the same name of the show or something that's repeatable. You're not going to change the words or anything. That would be a time you'd want to use the content and not the placeholder.
Exactly. Think of exactly like Aaron just mentioned, intros, outros, ad reads for like our podcasters, right? An intro is always going to say, the Marcello show with Marcello featuring Marcello and the show, right? Like that's always going to happen, right? The middle is going to be like, this show is sponsored by insert YouTuber sponsorship here. And the outro is always like, thanks for watching. Please don't unsubscribe, right? Those can be layouts that are saved with the content in the script. If anything else is going to be altered, like that's when we would want to save it as a placeholder. So again, persistent elements, keep content, anything that's swapped out, placeholder. I got to start a podcast again, man. I gave that intro so perfectly. All right, cool. Just kidding. All right, let's look at creating a layout from scratch. So we looked at applying a layout and then altering it, but let's create something like all on our own, right? So I'm going to just quickly add a couple of things on here that we can save as a layout for ourselves. On the right-hand side of the screen are one-click captions. So I'm just going to select these captions. These will automatically apply to my current scene. To this scene. Here we go. Now I also want to have some media. Let's pull in some more of our media that we have from the pirates. Let's go pirates on the map. Or no, we want to actually, let's do a placeholder so we don't always have the pirates on the map. So we'll pick a media placeholder from our elements panel here. Here's where we can add media. This will be like our company logo or our, an image of a pirate that we generated. And then finally, let's do a waveform here at the bottom, which I think also is visually pleasing. These are all elements that I'm grabbing from the Elements tab on the right-hand side of the screen. Again, there's a one-click for captions, but all the other elements can be selected from the Elements menu. Let's play this back to see what this looks like.
It's going to be a real game changer for anyone moving cargo across open waters.
Cool. All right. I like that. Let's say I want to save this for future use. Again, we just saw instead of selecting a layout and altering on-screen elements, we instead are creating a layout from scratch. So all this to show you don't need to start with something from Descript, right? Let's say you look through the gallery of Descript layouts and you go, man, these are great, but they are not for me, right? And nothing here fits my vibe. If so, Awesome. You are an individual. Let's get you some individual output, right? This can be done by selecting elements and adjusting elements from the right-hand side, captions or media. Again, if you want the placeholders, they're going to be found in elements. If you just want raw media that's going to persist, you can do so from our stock media library or from audio or visuals. But again, let's say I like this layout. Now, the exact same steps as beforehand. I can save scene as a new layout. On the right-hand side, we'll title this like waveform and media placeholder because I have a media placeholder there. The type, I'll put media because I'm doing a media placeholder. And like we just discussed, I'll let my script be a placeholder. My captions should be persistent. My placeholder is already a placeholder. And my waveform is there because I like that visually. I want to save this to the same webinar layout pack we had earlier. So now the two layouts that I've created, both from scratch and from a jumping off point, are saved in the same pack. So I can grab them both later if I so choose. I'll click save here. And now on the right-hand side, we see the layouts for one and for the other. We can even see the titles there as well. Pretty cool, huh?
Do you want to take a caption question?
Hit me, please. I'm on a roll.
So from YouTube, Jacob is asking about caption styles. I think the vibe that Jacob's looking for is more like social media native. Something that you could add more impact to a specific part of your video instead of just consistent captions the same all the way through.
This is a great question, and I'm not sure if it's a trick question because it's too juicy and leads me into the next thing too easily. But the main thing with what we're trying to do here, right, is like similar like some social media campaigns or some like trending posts. The way that captions are stylized for those is a lot more active, right? There's a lot more movement on screen. There's a lot more animation with some captions that we see. What I just applied is a very basic caption with one click to one section of the screen. But if I wanted to change the captions, let's say from this scene to this scene, I can do so. I can even add more scenes in between each scene to have more adjustment, right? So like here is this caption. And then here, let's say I want to change the caption where Jacques says the word for, right? Now here, I can go back to my captions. I can change for this scene and go to this yellow caption, right? I can delete that. Well, let me delete the bottommost caption first. And then apply these captions instead, right? So I have, this is an option. Same idea is I could go to like my layouts, and there is, if I go back to our default layout pack, there are plenty of caption layouts here that you can find different framings of captions. But the main thing here, like to answer the question, is how do I get more activity, more action out of my captions? The answer is creating additional scenes and using layouts or different caption styles from scene to scene that accentuate what you're wanting to discuss. Again, like here, these captions going from...
It's going to be a real game changer for anyone moving cargo across open waters.
Right. So a basic change to demonstrate quickly, but the idea for this would be, again, implementing additional scenes and then having any changes you want to the captions happen on a per scene basis. And then if you like that, then you can save that as a layout that you chain together later on to like put that full circle. But again, TLDR, scenes.
Yep. And you can even make, if there's a certain line you want to stand out, you could have a title card come up or do a media placeholder and just put that text on there statically that says, this is going to be a game changer instead of changing caption styles.
Absolutely. Cool. Now let's run through here and just finish out this this video so we can have, again, that pretty close look to that first piece. But while that's going, do we have any other questions in the chat that might be beneficial for right now?
How about knowing when to save your layout versus make it a different one? So say you saved it and then you decide to go tweak it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to resave it?
So you could resave it. I actually was just working with a customer on this this morning, but it just depends on how, like, what you want to do with that scene. The example I had from this morning was like, I had someone that was doing a screen recording, right? They're doing a product demonstration screen recording. And when they're doing screen recordings, there's always this square element on screen that is around whatever they're discussing, right? But when they're screen recording, it's not that the left half of the screen is always what they're focusing on, or the right half of the screen, right? There's some features and some sections of the application that they're hyper focusing on. So their layout is just this square, right? That just needs to be added to the screen. Then they can adjust and correct this to their heart's content. Now, they're not going to save the next layout after they reshape this square, right? They just need the square as an element on screen that they can customize to highlight what they want. But because what they're highlighting on screen is changing each time, they're not going to save like this new highlight range as a new layout. They already have the original layout that just brings those elements on screen and they can manually adjust. So I think the question is, like, if you need those assets on screen, then you can have a layout that like just brings it on screen and you can manually adjust. If you're going to use this visual layout more than one time, save it as a new layout. But if you're, going to manually adjust from that layout each time, then you don't need to make a new layout for that. I think the thing is, if you're going to use it more than once, that should be a new layout for your ease of use, not for any specific Descript setting, but just so you don't have to reframe something more than once.
Yep. And then you want to do one more question about,
Let's do it.
When you added those captions to be for just a few lines without going into the timeline, is this possible?
Yeah.
Can you make that just a couple of frames and then it goes back to the video without the layout?
Absolutely. Yeah. So like what we would do, right? Like let's say like here at the very end, I have captions for just this scene. Oh, here, let me just actually use this example, right? So we're going from this caption back to these captions and then back again without opening the timeline is the question?
Yeah. So say you just wanted that different style for the exact question from the YouTube chat. Agenda editor said 3 to 4 frames. So like, I don't know, that would be less than a word really, but
yeah, let's just say for like 2 words, just for the sake of like easy editing, right? But yes, I can have this caption. So again, this is just by utilizing additional scenes. And if someone is saying the timeline, coming from a timeline editor, please do not like perceive Descript separately as a timeline editor, because there's a lot of things that I want to do natively, like being in a multimedia editor for a long time. I'm like, open the timeline, just click here, click here. But the way that Descript is developed is around the script, right? So you don't need to open a timeline to make edits like this. If you're going very, very, very minute, like by frame, I would love to know what content you are changing captions for a literal 3 frames on. That is a very specific request, and I'd love to know that use case. But like in these kind of examples, I would say like the move would be utilizing an additional scene to going from one caption to another. And then again, I can adjust this scene and then have whatever captions I want. So we're going from this typewriter caption to modern yellow waveform caption back to typewriter by having 3 scenes. Scene 1 being the captions, scene 2 being the other captions, and scene 3 being those final captions. Just added one too many layers. But yeah, here would be that.
It's going to be a real game changer for anyone moving cargo across open waters.
So faster than like, or slower than a single frame, but if you're trying to highlight 2 words, this is exactly the case that we can do. So you can even make a selection. So if I select like 1 word and then I just click and drag this over that range, I could now have this scene, I'll have those captions as well. So a couple different ways to like add captions and specific elements on screen to specific time ranges.
yeah, we have great questions coming in. So we're going to give you another one, Marcello. Can you show us how to make edits to a saved custom layout? So
Totally.
you saved it once, you tweak something, and you're taking Marcello's advice that you want to update that previously saved version. How would you do that?
Yeah, so we're going to zoom out of a project real quick. So right now, this whole session, we've been inside of a Descript project editing. What we're going to do is we're going to zoom out to the homepage of Descript. Here, we have like our homepage where I can see all of my projects. I can interact with Underlord, blah, blah, blah. But on the left-hand side of my screen, I see layout packs. Here under layout packs is where I can go in and adjust existing layouts that I have created. Here's like a Descript default layout pack that I created. We'll open this here. And if I want to change anything here, I can do so by altering this scene. So now it just looks like I'm in a project, right? But I can see at the top of the screen, I'm editing a layout pack. So here I can, let's say I want to delete this or add an element here, whatever, right? I've now made the change to my layout. On the top right of my screen, inside of Descript, normally we'd see like an export button, but we're not exporting a layout. We're just saving this for us to use. So I'll click Publish Changes on the top right of the screen to publish my changes of the layout to myself. So here I've made that change. I click Publish Changes. Bada bing, bada boom. That's all updated. I'll get a confirmation here on the bottom right. saying, hey, your changes have published. And then I will be able to use my updates in projects, or if I share this with my Drive, other team members will be able to use that as well. So again, I would do any changing of a layout that is already saved here from the homepage under layout packs on the left-hand side of our screen.
Yeah. Shout out TCM Up Method on YouTube. Great questions today. How about a slides as your media style question? If you had something like a Gamma or a PowerPoint slide that you wanted to add, can you use that as a media file?
Yeah, totally. So I think, just to be clear, media is any type of media that is not, just to reiterate the 3 placeholder types we have, is screen, so my screen recording, my screen share, camera, so like me, and media. Media being literally anything else visual, right? Camera is default, like what you've recorded, or camera and screen are default what you recorded into Descript. Media is like a GIF, something from Giphy, a still image, a moving image, a slide from a deck. Anything like that is going to be media placeholder. And just to show again, if I select the media placeholder, I click replace media, and then here I can upload from my computer, the file being the slide from your deck or a group of slides. But yeah, media placeholder is named media, but like can be like expand your mind on the concept of media, man, because like it can be really anything.
Yeah. If you can drag and drop it in on a computer, you can
Pretty
put
much.
it in your project.
Yeah. Here, wait, here's an image. Here's an image of me in the office that I'm going to do that right now. Look, just to show. Boom. Here's an image. Pretend that's your Google slide. Boom. I clicked and dragged that in from the desktop on my computer. But yeah, there you go. Cool. I wanted to talk about one last thing that we've been kind of like seeing without really mentioning this whole time before I open up for like final Q&A. Do you think we have time to talk about smart transitions?
Absolutely, because I want to know, how is it changing when you're adjusting the visual layout between scenes?
Yeah, so here, just to show, right, we're going to play back this original video so we can see some of the animation, and then we'll talk about like how that's happening.
This is Jacques from Poseidon Logistics with an update that will be a real treasure for your shipping operations. We've just released a groundbreaking improvement to our Pirate Tracker feature.
So one thing that happens in those 3 first scenes is that our speaker, Jacques, is reframed 3 different times while staying on screen, right? We're going from this kind of like 1/3 view to like a inside of a little container view to then even a little bit smaller in a smaller container, right? How is that happening? I didn't do anything, right? How's that happening? Well, the whole time that we've been using scenes and layouts, just to the right of the word layout, we had this little like hourglass icon. This hourglass icon is the indicator for what we call transitions. If I click here, I have the ability to choose a transition. The transition happens between scenes. So we're moving from one scene to another. The transition is referring to what happens in between those 2 scenes. By default, every layout inside of Descript comes with what's called a smart transition. A smart transition moves elements on screen that persist in a fluid way so you don't have to. Like I showed earlier, if you wanted to, like I could click on, anything here and, I can see animations on the right-hand side. I can manually do a lot. But what's even easier is utilizing the Descript smart transitions. Just to literally quote it from the tooltip, it matches elements across scenes and animates seamlessly for polished professional look. And again, just to show that in practice, anytime you see Jacques here on the right-hand side reframed, that is the smart transition or the smart animation in practice.
This is Jacques from Poseidon Logistics.
So
with an
reframed,
update that will be a real treasure.
and then once
for your
more
shipping
here,
operations. We've
reframed.
just released.
So minimal things, but in another tool, I would have to manually resize, go frame by frame in a timeline and shrink something slowly. With Descript, I don't have to do those labor-intensive I don't have to roll up my sleeves as far as I would with other tools to get to that kind of endpoint, right? So just to be clear, all layouts by default have smart transitions on there. If you wanted to, under the properties panel, you can either delete or adjust the parameters of the smart transition. Let's say the smart transition was too fast. Either from the properties panel or from this little hourglass icon here, I can change the duration. So if things are moving too quickly, I can extend the duration by a little bit. If I wanted to remove fades, I can do so. And if I don't want to use smart transition anymore, but I want to use a specific transition I know about, like the Marcello favorite, the star wipe, you can do so from this drop-down screen here. But just wanted to call that out because every layout by default has smart transitions. So if you're like, how are these things moving around automatically? That's on purpose, I promise. Cool. That's all for for smart transitions.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think of it as how to make it look like you know how to edit videos, but it's just an automatic thing.
Yeah, literally.
People will see those animations because if you've ever seen a video that doesn't animate just a harsh snap here in a frame, it looks terrible. But now it does it automatically, and you don't even have to know how. It's just smart transitions.
Absolutely. All right, cool. So I think we can go through a little bit of a recap because we covered a lot today, and I want to make sure people are remembering or taking away everything that they can with this. But again, today we learned about scenes. We learned what they are, how to use them, how to add them to a project. We learned about layouts and layout packs, right? The container of the layouts as well as the layouts inside. Layouts being the visual templates that we can put over top of a scene to frame things consistently. We learned about saving layouts as well as customizing existing layouts. So we can, again, save layouts by right-clicking the thumbnail and saving them to our new pack, or we can create a new layout pack or a new layout from scratch and save that. Aaron, did I miss anything?
No. How about we're getting some questions on the workflow. So
Yeah.
one of your things, the Marcello method of here's my project. When should I be tweaking this thing versus this thing that will get me to Rome the fastest? What's your sequence of, say, editing the media, adding scenes, all of that stuff? Because we're getting questions like, what if I applied a layout and then I go, oh, actually, I want the layout a little bit different. It doesn't auto update all the previously applied layouts. So what's the sequence you like to go through and edit that makes your life easier?
Yeah. So the first thing I do, like, and I work a lot with people that are like, doing like getting onboarded to Descript or like doing trials with Descript. So the first thing that I recommend for people getting in is to create your layout pack. We have our default layout packs. We have like ways to remix layout packs. But I would say the flow that I have, like zooming all the way out, is making sure that I have the general framing down, or at least I know what of the default Descript layout packs that I'm going to use. Just that way I kind of have an idea going in, like what's the vibe, right? Then what I'll do is exactly kind of what we did today in the session. I will take what I call like a scene pass first, right? So I have my full recording. I'm probably going to do that with this webinar when we're done, right? But I'll have the full video, and then I will go through and rewatch at probably like 1.5 to 1.75 speed, and I'll use the / key on my keyboard when I know, okay, here's where I want to do, here's what I want to change, here's what I want to change. And kind of like if I'm using like a sculpting analogy, I'm sculpting like a big piece of marble. I'm doing large chunks off first, right? I'm taking this like larger piece and I'm roughly shaping, okay, I want to change here, but not the in-depth details of that. Once I do my narrative pass, so I have my hour-long video and I say, hey, scene break here, then I'll go through for the visual pass. And that's when, in this same analogy, I'll get into like the fine chisel, right? And I'll start applying layouts, and then I'll start fine-tuning a little bit further, right? Either using a default layout or adjusting a layout that I so see fit. When you are like, the reason that I'm doing in that fashion is because I know I want a drastic change between scenes. LOL, Marcello is 1.5x. Yeah. Try to watch this back at 2. Get ready for your head to blow up. Just kidding. But so I do that narrative pass because like I know that my visuals are going to change drastically at those moments. If there's smaller moments in between, then like I'll go back through. But like my flow is always scene pass, layout pass, re-review. So I watch back to see if there's anything else that I need to add as like in betweens, or that's where I would probably implement like the B-roll, right? Because I'm not adding B-roll like at that moment. I'm usually adding B-roll or generating B-roll like after as the third pass when I'm filling those placeholders, right? So I try to go through those like in groups, but that's just how I edit myself. Again, scenes, then layouts, and then like the B-roll media on top. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, certainly. Because the big thing is don't apply layouts until you're sure that's how they're going to stay. You don't want it to go back and tweak previously applied layouts.
And one thing with layouts as well is that like when I apply a layout, if I apply another one over top, it replaces the first one. It's not additive, right? I'm not stacking like layer by layer. I am picking a layout. If I like that layout, cool. If I like a different one, I'm replacing that in full with a new one. So I usually like that. That's keeping that in mind is how I edit. But yeah.
Yeah. How about adding music as a media type?
Yeah, adding music as a media type is going to be on the right-hand side here under the stock media library. Under audio, we have default. We have like audio effects as well as like full songs. There's not a song placeholder. The placeholders are currently visual only. So if you're asking how do I use a media placeholder for a song, not currently possible. The placeholders are just for visual elements. So to add music to your content, you'd either import the file from your computer and put it here in your project file folder, or look at our stock media library for anything under the audio section for full songs or sound effects.
Yep. And you can use those commercially. So like YouTube will not give you a copyright strike or anything that you're doing paid. That's part of what you get with your subscription. How about this question about
Ooh, nice.
merging? What if you, from the beginning of the webinar, we had 7 scenes. What if you want to get rid of one? What's that mean to merge?
Yeah, so just to show here, right? Here, this scene from scene 1, right? Scene 1 is just my speaker and text. Scene 2 is a pirate and my speaker. Let's take scene 2 and merge it with the scene before to see what happens. If I click merge with the scene before, what happens? We lose the visuals from that layout, right?
This is Jacques from Poseidon Logistics with an update that will be a real treasure for your shipping operations.
So what I've essentially done is I've removed the scene boundary, i.e. removed like the layout, right? That's by merging up. So I am essentially deleting this without deleting any of the media that comes inside, right? I am removing this pirate visual, but there's that piece. And then the same idea, if I merge with the scene after, now the scene below hand is like swallowed up, quote unquote, into this one. So it's just, again, like kind of like adding or removing a scene boundary. We also, just to show this real quick where we have it here, we could copy and paste layouts. So here, if I like this pirate view, I can paste this here. And then here on this next scene, I have the same kind of visuals.
Yep. I'm a huge fan of copy and pasting the layouts. Once you have those scene done from your scene pass that Marcelo talked about, you don't even have to go into the sidebar menu. You can just copy and paste how they look within the transcript.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's not a maximum video length. There are some limits on the file size and when you go to export, but
I think the max length, you're right, max file size is like 50 gigs. I feel like we had a max length at some point of like 10 to 15 hours. So just like don't upload. If you have a video of you doing a product demonstration for 10 to 15 hours, I have plenty of ways for you to get that more succinct. But like, yeah, I think that's our amount. 50 gigs is the max file size for, at least from what I'm aware.
yeah, there's media minutes per month based on your subscription, but not when you go to actually drop in the file or record.
And I think when you like publish to YouTube, we have a max of like 4 hours or something like that, just based on like our integration. But like, again, these are very sideball kind of vibes. Like you shouldn't need to worry. Again, 50 gigs should be the only kind of number in your mind for max file size or length.
Yeah, we're getting tons of good questions here at the end. So
Hit me, dude.
Let's go with
on a roll.
How did merging that scene differ from if you just got rid of it? Like, why would you want to merge it with the one before or after versus just remove it?
I mean, to be so real with you, I just usually delete a scene boundary. I'm not one that normally merges scenes. For me personally, merging scenes sometimes is like, cool, I merged with before that, but like, where is that, that pirate that we just had on screen, where'd that go? So like, I'm much more of a fan of deleting scene boundary, but it kind of does the exact same thing, at least in my usage. Trevor on support, please correct me if I'm wrong, if there's anything in there. But again, just like in my day-to-day usage, I usually just delete scene boundary for me specifically.
Yeah. For me, I think it's just a matter of, do you want to smush it now into the layout that was before it or after it? That's when you would want to merge.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why you should do your scene pass first before you do all your layout stuff, because you don't want to go back and do a lot of merging or deleting. Let's do another question here from YouTube, Event Pixels. They have one video they want to export in 16:9, so it's widescreen.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah.
Also 1:1, which is square, which is an interesting format. How can I do this with my customized layout pack within the same layout pack for multiple videos?
Yeah, so you can, a layout pack, just to show here under the properties panel, right? A layout pack can have multiple video orientations inside. Earlier, I showed this little search bar to search inside of your layout pack, but there's this like I do not know the technical term for this thing, but it looks like a little water slide or maybe a set of stairs.
The
filter button, whatever. Cool.
The water slide.
It looks like a little, for me, it looks like a little water slide. I don't know. All right. But if I click here, right, I can see aspect ratio and I can choose either to match composition. So right now I'm only filtering layouts that are in this style. But if I go to portrait or to square, one for one, now I have the same styled layouts, just in a different video orientation. And when I apply this, let's do B-roll overlay. When I apply this layout, it's going to change the aspect ratio of my video as well, right? So I don't have to worry about like going up here and changing to square. By applying a square layout, my video is now a square. And then I can do my standard placeholder replacements where I go from my images, from my computer, boom, boom, replace. And then now I'm in this new orientation without having to change any layout pack. And again, to do that, I went to the filter button, not to the water slide button, to the right of the magnifying glass. And then I changed the aspect ratio. Again, by default, it is match composition to make it easy for you. But if you want any of these other ones, you can go, let's say I want to go to TikTok next. Here I go with a B-roll overlay. And now I've reoriented my whole video.
Yep. So then when you would go to save that event pixels, just save it into the same one you've already made.
Exactly.
And if you are using different formats, why not put that in the name of the layout, like 1:1 versus 9:16 versus 16:9?
Yeah, I usually like if people are more novice to like the technical termings for aspect ratio too. I've seen plenty of people do like the abbreviations for what social networks they're going into. Like I've literally just had a customer this morning that was like iPhone video is the naming convention for their like portrait stuff. So yeah, but it can be whatever you want. And then also don't forget these tags here, right? So you can group together media ones. That might be another way for you to organize.
Yep. And the toughest thing when you're doing that, based on this question, you just have to reframe things to fit. So sometimes your media is hard to smash into a square or a vertical or a widescreen format. But
this is one thing that I want to just clarify, because people ask this question all the time. When you are changing something from one video orientation to another, that is a different source video. So squeezing and stretching that is going to be like different, right? I cannot take a video filmed in landscape and just like say, hey, magic machine, put me perfectly framed for TikTok, right? There is going to need to be some stretching and squeezing. That happens with any video, right? So the one thing I would recommend, just as a Marcello tip, is if you know you are going to be posting this on socials, try to remember that when you are doing your framing. Me and Aaron and another member of our team had a call to talk about how we were going to frame ourselves in this webinar so that we could optimize ourselves for social posting afterwards, right? That's why you saw us in these little kind of like this literally, right? So like, if you know you're going to record like this, don't record widescreen, right? I don't need all this extra screen region where my arms are that you can't see. I'm only going to be framed here for the content that I'm going to. So not saying you can't, reshape and size, but just keep that in mind when you're recording. Is like optimal, like in gets you best out. Anyway.
Yep, which is perfect for Hema's question. You can envision this as a TikTok reel or an Instagram reel of Marcello here. That's going to be way easier, especially if you're going to social media. So I think about this, Hema, are they watching it on a phone or are they watching it on a TV or a monitor? Because I don't know a ton of use of square formatted videos. If somebody does, please let me know. Maybe I just live in a cave, but it's usually 9:16 tall. Or let's say they're going to be watching on YouTube. You're like, I want wide for my original source because this will show up better.
Yeah. And then to answer the question in the chat, I'm a social media content creator. Which layout should I choose? I think as a creative, you should let us know what elements you want on screen. But to answer the question of like framing, like I showed beforehand, on the right-hand side of Descript, if I click on this filter button, I can see all portrait style ones. If you're asking Marcello, Helsinki Blueberry, Berlin Carrot Dark, those are visually sick. And then we have portrait ones for that. But this is like me asking, what should my podcast be about, right? Whatever I want. The question, the further question is like, okay, where do I get these like portrait ones specifically? Again, check the filtering here to only look at the ones that are framed for you. But if you're asking like, I'm a social media creator, the thing that you need is this framing. The thing that you can decide is the style that you want. Berlin Carrot Dark, Helsinki Blueberry, default to script, custom to your heart's content. The world is your oyster. How far you crack, that's up to you.
Yep, absolutely. So perfect transition here for us to finish up. If you want to learn more and dive deeper into the content that Marcello was teaching today, you can always go to Learn Descript is in the app on the sidebar. So it's like built-in videos right there before you get into your project. We have Discord office hours. That's usually got Marcello in there. If you didn't quite fill out your bingo card
Yeah,
today,
it's
you
going to be in
probably-
1 hour if you're not doing anything in Discord. So come hang out in literally 40 or 57 minutes. But yeah.
Yep. And if it's more support type help you're looking for, I'm hitting a bug. I don't know how to make this thing work. We have weekly support webinars on Tuesdays at 11 Pacific time. You can get in the chat and get help. And we always have webinars coming up. Just make sure I get the right, there we go. And if you want help with like, how do I set this up? I'm on a team of 5 and this looks cool, but I don't know how to use it, or my company. You can get somebody from our team, like Marcello is one of the people who does this, to walk you through, to answer your specific questions, show you how you would do this in your work. And that will be in the captions below. So like if you're going to watch this later on YouTube, it's saved. Look down in the first comment and you can always reach out there and we will get you in touch with people who can help you get that set up. Last but not least, for feedback up here in the top right corner, last I checked, it's 3 questions. It helps us understand how well we did answering your questions. It also gives us ideas on future webinars. This is an example. The entire webinar was on layouts and scenes. That's because people in previous webinars asked for that and said, hey, could we get Marcello just teaching us those topics? Here we are. If you have something specific you'd like to see or a use case that you haven't seen us do a webinar on, that QR code is going to get you to us so we can build what you want. And that's going to go away in 3, 2, 1. So, Marcello, my man, thank you. He was only on 6 cups of coffee today, but he did a great job teaching us. Go use those layouts, go make something cool, and tag us with what you post.
Please, I want to see all these beautiful Descript creations. Whatever you're making. Let me see.
Yep, absolutely. TCMU, you're the MVP in the chat. Respect. Thank you for all of the great questions. Now go put them to work and use them. Catch you guys next week. Translation webinar. If you're doing any kind of take your video or media and I want it to be in 5 or 10 or 20 different languages, keep your eyes out for that. Or scan the QR code here. I guess I'll put it on the screen one more time.
Yeah, you'll fill out your Marcello bingo card. I'll talk about Brazilian Portuguese next week.
Yes. With the few scores that weren't checked today, there was no mention of the Beatles nor Metallica. That was disappointing. Have a great one, everybody.